Hi, Nicole. Happy Tuesday. Thank you so much for joining me this morning.
Thanks, Claire. I'm so excited to be here.
So am I. I've been wanting to sit down and chat with you for some time because I feel like I say this every time, but I do feel like your story is really unique again and unique. And you've sort of been through so much in such a short amount of time that a lot of us haven't. And we always say that these journeys are layered and everyone's on their own sort of trajectory. And I think yours is just so different to so many of us. And I think it's such an important story to share. And you have been so willing to share it. And I know that some people who are listening are going to know you and your story and your beautiful girl, Hallie. I always like to start at the beginning because there's just, we have to start in a chronological order, otherwise we get confused. But I also think going back, there was so much happening that first year, particularly, and we were in contact in that first year. And I just remember you were just finding out new information all the time. And I think, yeah, so much, so many plot twists and so many curveballs for you. So let's start back at the very beginning. You've just given birth to your beautiful girl and tell us what happened.
Yeah, of course. So, yeah, gave birth to her on her due date. She came naturally, and we were in hospital for just 24 hours in the public system, and they did the newborn hearing test the next day. And they said it's a refer. And I was like, what does that mean? Like, it wasn't even on my radar. Like, they just came in and did it. I was by myself. And I was like, oh, yeah, you can do the newborn hearing test, not even second guessing it. And they came in and it was a refer. So they said, okay, in the next 3 weeks, you'll get another test. And then they'll go from there. And they gave me the statistics that 6 out of 10 babies have fluid in their ears. I think it was 3 in 10. Oh, no, sorry. I rephrase that. 6 out of 10 pass the second time. 3 in 10 have fluid in their ears, and 1 in 10 have permanent hearing loss to some degree. And they said, but it's very rare. And I was like, okay. And so I was starting to get a bit worried, but I was like, okay, let's just see how it goes. And I remember in the first week, we started to see friends and family, and I told them she didn't pass. And every single friend said, oh, it'll be fine. It will just be fluid. Like, she'll pass the next one. And I was like, okay, sure. But it was still in the back of my mind. Like, I don't let things go. That's my personality. So I still had it there. And then I think she was about between 2 and 3 weeks of age. And we went for the second test at a community health center. And we went in this time, her dad was with me, and she got her another refer. And they're like, okay, this time now she will have to get referred to an audiologist, and it will be probably within the next week or so. And mind you, it was COVID at this time too, so things were scaled back a lot. So we got, after that, I think it all happened quite quickly. We got the call that she was booked in to see the audiologist by, I think she was, yeah, smack bang, I think 3 weeks of age when she got their appointment. And I remember walking into the hospital, and Nick came with me, her dad, and we get to the reception. They said, oh, only one parent can go in. It's COVID. And I was like, okay, sure, like, this is going to be fine. Luckily, we lived like 2 minutes from the hospital at that time. So he went home. And I remember walking into the room, and I was just a ball of nerves. And I just wanted to ask so many questions, but I know that they had to do their testing, and she had to be very quiet for this test. And she's a newborn baby. You don't know what you're going to get. So they start doing the testing, and the audiologist, he is amazing at his job, but I think the people skills wasn't his forte. So he didn't really know what to say to me. And I'm just sitting in this chair looking down at Hallie with all these things on her ears. And I was like, where am I right now? Like, I was just so overwhelmed. I had tears rolling down my face because I had no one with me.
Well,
And he was pretty much saying, we're not getting much of a result here. I'm going to get them to call your husband back in.
oh,
So, yeah, when he said that, I knew it wasn't going to be the outcome that we thought it would be. So I think Nick was there within 10 minutes. Um, and Nick walks in and looks at me and goes, is everything okay? And I just had tears just rolling down my face, quietly, silently crying.
oh, Nicole.
Yeah. He said, look, we're not getting any results here today. We're not picking up much. I do want to test her one more time. And I think it was like the next week from memory. And at that time, we were living with family because we were building our second home. So our life was already kind of just up in the air as it was. And we had to go and pick up our eldest son from childcare. And my best friend lived like 5 minutes down the road from the childcare. And I just said to Nick on the way to pick him up, I was like, I can't go home. Like, I just don't want to be alone. So I honestly don't really remember those first few weeks. Like, I was just a ball of a mess. I had no idea what was coming. And then the calls just started from there. Like, I think it was the counselling service, the child health at the Queensland Children's Hospital were calling to discuss appointments. Even though they still wanted him to do one more test, he was pretty certain that she was severe to profound. I think it was in her left, and her right was profound.
Those first days it is such a blur. Like I can't remember anything. I just remember one time Cam, my husband, and I were just sitting on the couch crying for like a
Yeah.
whole day. And you're just
Yeah.
not really sure. But then you get all these calls and they're there to help you, but they just overwhelm you.
Yeah, 100%. And you don't know what questions to ask at that time too. Like you're also experiencing giving birth to a baby and then also dealing with this on top. It's a lot to be going through. And I had never really met a deaf person in my life. So this was a whole new journey. So yeah, I remember going to my best friend's house that night. I don't even remember really what was said. Like I was just crying, pretty much sitting on her couch. A week later, we went back and did the test. This time, Nick was allowed to come. There was an exemption due to I guess, the severity of Hallie's case. But at that time, I remember him saying, we're not getting anything from the cochlear, which was why it was saying she was severe to profound. And I was like, okay. And then he said, they've got cochlear implants that she can get down the track if that's something you want to do. Hearing aids will get fitted within the next few weeks. And at this stage, she was 4 weeks of age. And I was like, hearing aids, like, what? Like, I had no idea. And also, like, I had no idea what would be funded, what we would have to pay for out of pocket. Like, there was a lot of questions going through my mind. So within the next 2 weeks, we got an appointment at the audiologist at the QCH. And we also got an appointment with the nurse there on the same day. And I remember walking into Hearing Australia as well that day at the hospital. And that was a lot of information overload because they start testing her for her hearing aid molds and finding out what frequency she needed to have them at. And then he starts applying for NDIS. And I was like, and luckily my brother is actually on NDIS. So I did understand a little bit of it, but it wasn't, yeah, I had no idea still. Like my mum dealt with all of that. So I didn't really need to know too much. So again, that was a whole new world, finding out about all of that. So I think by the time she was 8 weeks of age, 8 weeks of age, yeah, she was fitted with hearing aids.
Yeah.
And then all the testing started again from there. It was like, let's test to see what she's hearing with these hearing aids. We have to book her in for an MRI and CT. And so we booked her in and I think at 10 weeks of age for that, and she wouldn't sleep. So they said, we can't really get much imaging at the moment. We'll redo this at 6 months of age. And I said, okay, no worries. I didn't think anything of that. So for the next few months, we started doing physio, we started doing speech therapy and started learning Auslan because we always knew from the beginning. I think I'd found your page and seen the importance of Auslan and just from other pages as well that I had come across, that it's always your choice as a parent. And you can choose one path, but it can change 2 months later. Like, and it's okay that it's constantly changing. It's exhausting, but that's okay.
Yeah. I love that you were able to make that choice early as well, even though you still had so many questions. And knowing now, you're going to talk about it, but knowing Hallie's trajectory, what
Yeah.
just a saving grace to have that under your belt early.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember. So I think at 11 weeks of age, we got in touch with our first teacher of the deaf who came out to our house to start teaching us Auslan because it was so hard to try and find deaf mentors. I didn't know this world to find anyone who could teach us Auslan, and we needed to learn it quick because she hated her hearing aids. She'd pull them out and she was hearing nothing, and she was very visual from a very young age. So even though I thought she was going to have access to sound, I still wanted her to have access to another language when she didn't want to wear those devices. And devices can break. So you just never know.
Oh,
So we
yeah.
started learning Auslan. I actually remember doing the alphabet from school. So I still remembered the A to Z. But other than that, I knew nothing. So we started learning that, and Nick as well was learning that. And we started teaching Rocco as well. And he would have been 2.5 at that age.
Yeah. So he would have
So
been a little sponge too, which would have been
yeah,
nice. Yeah.
yes. And like colors and animals, they were all his favorite things. You could turn it into a game. So that was lots of fun. But we also realized from probably around the same time that we started with our teacher of the deaf that Hallie wasn't hitting her gross motor milestones. She couldn't hold her head up. She would arch her back. She was very flimsy and floppy. So we got in touch with a physio and they did an assessment on her. And from then we started going twice a week. And I remember calling up, booking her in for her first appointment. And I said, oh, she's on NDIS. And they were so shocked at how little she was that she had already been approved for NDIS. That's one good thing I think about the hearing loss side is when you do get diagnosed with a hearing loss, you get straight on NDIS and it's very quick. So we were very lucky by 10 weeks of age, she was approved and she had all this funding and I didn't know what to use it for.
That's
Yeah.
really true with the deafness. Like it's such a sort of clear cut thing in a lot of ways, sometimes not, but generally it's like that's the audiogram. There's no gray area here. Whereas with so many other disabilities and diagnoses, it's just such an investigative, like you've got to go through a whole process. Whereas with us, it's so quick, and that's such a good point. Yeah.
100%. But I didn't know really how to use this funding or what I was doing with it, but I was grateful to have it. So it meant that we could start accessing services like our teacher of the deaf, physio, and then speech. So by the time she was, I think, 11 or 12 weeks of age, we had a fair few appointments. We were going to physio twice a week, doing our teacher of the deaf. I was trying to, I think, start with some deaf mentors as well, but it was, again, a lot of them have a long wait list. So we were kind of waiting for that. And then also speech once a week, and then also attending a play group for like an deaf hard of hearing kids at an ECDP. So there was a lot of appointments. I felt like I was constantly in the car. Every day there was something on.
Keeping in mind you're postpartum and you have another child, and this was very similar. We were at physio with Frankie too because he had a bit of hypertonia early on, but it was like you just look back and go, how did I not completely burn out? It's almost like we didn't have a choice because there was just, you had to keep going.
Yeah. And going back to when Hallie first got diagnosed at 3 weeks of age, I got diagnosed with postnatal depression. I was not coping. So I was, yeah, put on some medication, but the medication made me numb and I wouldn't cry. I wasn't dealing. So I weaned myself off that with guidance of my GP. And that definitely helped. I think it done the Band-Aid fix for the first few weeks to just to help with my emotions. But yeah, looking back now, I'm like, how, and even now, she still has a lot of appointments and a lot of driving around Brisbane to make her attend her deaf kindies and all of that. But you still wonder how you did it in those first few months.
It's like that, postpartum adrenaline. It's like you just sort of, I don't know what it is. It's just this, yeah, it takes over you. Hey.
Yeah. And sometimes you've got no other choice but to be strong. Even though you don't want to be strong, you've just got to kick on. You're a mum and mum's a superwoman. So yeah, so for the first 6 months of her life, we were, yeah, doing speech, physio, and started then with our deaf mentors. And I remember we got the letter for her MRI and CT now, and I think it was 6 months and one day she got that appointment and she had to be put to sleep. That was why they waited till she was 6 months of age, because she had to be put under GA. And so they got the imaging and her appointment was booked for 1 week later with our ENT at the Children's Hospital. And I was like, oh yeah, like we'll go in, we'll talk about cochlear implants. Even though we were also doing Auslan, I wanted her to have access to both. If we were going to choose, it was going to be both for her. So then when she gets older, she could choose which path. If she wanted to do both, one, that's up to her. But at least we've given her access to everything. So I remember we walk into the room and he just looks at us and says, I'm so sorry, Hallie is not a candidate for cochlear implants. And I remember looking at Nick and I was like, what does he mean? Like, and he said, yeah, she's got no cochlear, no auditory nerve, and also missing some of her balance. And he said he hadn't seen a case like Hallie's in 25 years. That's how rare. And I just remember the tears started again. And I was like, it was a whirlwind of information. He was amazing, our ENT. I'm so grateful because we're in the public system, who we have. He's an incredible guy. And he just let us sit there and ask any questions, but I didn't really have any questions. And at that stage, I honestly, I couldn't think forward. I was like, what does this mean for our life? Like everything's changed again now.
I remember us talking back at the time when this all happened, and you were like, everyone just keeps telling me it's so rare, but I don't know can't do anything with that. And it's like, it was such a hard time for you because there wasn't enough data of other kids like her for you to actually grasp onto anything. So this was just such a new journey.
Yeah. 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 And still, even now, there is a few other kids that we know of similar that L1 users. I don't know if they've got the same anatomy as Hallie, but they're still, Auslan is their first language. But yeah, I remember the next day, our ENT, he's so beautiful. He called just to do a welfare check. He was like, you haven't left my mind. I just wanted to check in with you. And apparently, when he's seen Hallie's MRI and CT, he called one of his professors down in Melbourne to double check what he was seeing was what he thought, because he hadn't seen this in so long.
Wow, such a unique thing. And how beautiful. You don't get that very often with the ENT
No.
field. So,
Yeah, I was very blessed. And then I guess from there though, we got discharged from the clinic with the child health nurse because they weren't putting cochlear implants into Hallie. There wasn't much they could do. So we decided to stop speech then and there because they literally at that appointment, our ENT said her hearing aids are doing nothing. She doesn't need to wear them anymore. So one less appointment for us to go to, but then it just meant I wanted to increase our Auslan. So that was just before Christmas. We got the results. I think it was like 3 weeks before Christmas.
when you found out about that, so when you've said you've been discharged, was there any guidance for you? Was it like, okay, so because this is what I find happens when whether it's device refusal or when we have these L1 kids. Now, L1, for those who don't know, it means language first Auslan, so or sign language. So her first primary language is Auslan for her life, but also written English will be her second language. But I've heard so many stories where these kids are discharged and it's like, see you later. Everyone just recedes. There's no one around and you sort of have to navigate this on your own. Was that sort of what it was like for you?
Yeah, it was, especially in the Auslan field. I didn't know where to turn to. Our ENT still wanted to see Hallie 6 monthly just to check the anatomy and make sure that she wasn't going to get any infections from fluid. But it was a big shock because I didn't know what to do. And even our speech place that we were attending as well, they were shocked too. They didn't know what to do as well. They said, we can stay in contact if you want, but there's not really much we can do for you. And I was like, okay. Hearing Australia have been amazing. They still contact once a year, and they're more, I guess, for when we need to be fitted with smoke alarms and fire alarms and all of that sort of stuff. Yeah, so we're still lucky that we have the ENT that we can go to. She got fitted with grommets recently because she's still got fluid in her ears. But yeah, it was a big shock, I think, because there's not enough support for the L1 users out there.
No, and I would really agree with that. And I think it's not enough to just go, well, it's rare and we're not really equipped, so see you later. I think that that's just such a disservice to these kids because it also comes back to that at the beginning. She's already had so many months of her life with no input, and there was no I can't remember exactly your journey from the beginning, but there just doesn't seem to be that let's give them everything. Let's give them this sign modality. Just like it's not even just in case, it's because it's equivalent to a spoken language. We should be giving both from the start, non-negotiable, doesn't matter what the profile is. And it's just so sad that it's like, well, this didn't work. And so you're sort of on your own because we don't know what to do with this sort of profile. And I just find that so disappointing in so many ways.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Yeah, it's very overwhelming as a parent. And
Yeah.
even for parent support too, there's not a lot of parents out there for support with children with L1 users. And that's something maybe down the track I would like to support parents with. But it's, I guess, a lot when you're on the journey and you're still trying to navigate what is the right thing to do for your child.
Yeah.
Um,
You have become that sort of person for a lot of people though in the community, I think. I think without even knowing, but it's because you have, as you said, you want to know everything about something, you take the bull by the horns and you sort of get on with it. But I feel like you have definitely carved a way for other people to sort of understand this journey a little bit more. And by sharing Hallie's journey, I think has been really powerful.
yeah,
And I guess for you, what's it been like? We always talk about advocacy in this space. Like we're all constantly advocating for our kids. And a lot of the advocacy that parents who have children with devices, what that sort of revolves around us convincing people that our children are still deaf, even though they have devices. But for you, it's a different sort of journey. And I guess I wanted to talk to that now and ask what that's been like and what have been the main advocacy challenges for you when it comes to Hallie.
yeah. So in regards to advocacy, when we found out that Hallie was going to be L1, we were building a house about an hour out of the city, and we then decided that we had to send our son to a school that was going to give him access to be able to sign with his sister. So we decided to start the ball rolling to fight for him to get into a school out of catchment, which was a bilingual bicultural school for Auslan. So that would then mean if he got accepted, Hallie would automatically be in. And that would then mean it was one less thing I would have to fight for at a school to give her access to Auslan. It meant that she could have peers that would be signing, her teachers could understand what she would be saying. And even before and after school care, they make sure that there is people there who can sign if that was what we had to use as well. So that was kind of my first, I guess, fight, was trying to get Rocco into this school, especially being out of catchment and where we lived. We had to go quite high up to get approved into that. So that was our first kind of, I guess, battle for me. Even though Hallie was only a baby, that was where my head was thinking. I was like, long term, she's going to need a good education. And then it also meant when this diagnosis came out, we went for change of circumstances with NDIS because so much had changed. She also wasn't really seeing much improvement with physio. Her physio didn't know what was going to happen for Hallie. I remember that Christmas time, our physio writing up a massive letter for NDIS saying she might need a walker, a wheelchair, because she just wasn't improving. And then we found out she was missing her balance. They didn't know what this was going to look like. So we got a lot of funding that first year, which was amazing. So I just went hell for leather and I literally put her in as much physio as we could. And also I undertook my certificate 2 and certificate 3 in 2022. And then we did, I think, 3 sessions a week of Auslan at home through our different deaf mentors. So we also had access to that. Yeah, it's hard, I think, with our friends and family. Like, I love them and they're all such a great support, but it's not their life. They're not living it day to day. And I don't expect them to get it, but it's hard. And they can all definitely sign the basics, which is amazing. But my mum has done her certificate 2 and 3 in Auslan, so I'm very grateful for that. And we've done a few courses as well through some of our deaf mentors, and we've done like a friends thing through you as well. But if you're not using the language, you're going to forget it. And sometimes everyone's got busy lives. They sometimes go a few months without seeing Hallie. And so then they forget what they've learned. And that's okay. But that's what I think I found hard as well, is keeping people on top of wanting to learn Auslan so that she feels included. Like, that's a thing where I think I have been burnt out.
Oh, I can't. I mean, it's such a big undertaking because it is her sole language for communication. And she's such a bright bunny, and not to give her all that access is just, it's not an option. And I think what you said before is so true. Like, this world is all consuming, and sometimes we can come off, I guess, to other people like we don't have a life outside of this world. And it's like, oh, it's all consuming. All you do is talk about it. All you do is advocate for it. And it's like, we don't get to choose. We don't get to check out of this world. And it's funny, I went to a conference recently as a teacher for deaf hat on. And I was there with the parent at the back, and we were standing there, and she goes, "It's interesting. The people in this room, they're passionate, they're wonderful, but they get to leave this conference and go back to their lives. We don't. Like, this is us for the rest of our life." And it just really hit me that that's the shift for me personally, but also that, your friends will come, they'll see Hallie, they're in their family and they're beautiful, but they leave and they go back into the hearing world, their comforts. We're still here and we wouldn't be anywhere else, but that's why we don't stop advocating, and that's why we don't stop pushing, because we don't actually, they're our little heart. Like, we don't get a choice.
Yeah. And just seeing, like, when anyone signs to Hallie, whether it's just hi, how are you, or just something minor, her whole face lights up because she's like, you're on my same wavelength. Like, that's where her mind goes.
Mhm.
And it's hard. And then when we do go to events, she wants to know what people are saying now. She's at that age, or what's happening around her. So I'll be interpreting. And that's amazing. But then I don't get to then just be a friend at those events. Like, I'm mum, I'm the interpreter. Like, everything else comes first.
Yeah.
I definitely felt in 2022 and 2023, I was getting burnt out. I was just like, there was no stopping. And my biggest lesson and my biggest advice probably for parents is take school holidays as a break. And I learned that from my best friend, Lauren, who is in this same journey as me, on a different path, but same journey. She was the one who said you need to have a break in the holidays, like, to recharge. And so I do that now, and I don't feel guilty for taking those breaks because Hallie's still getting language in those holidays from me. I'll still plan things every now and then, but everything in our life stop and we can just be a family.
I love that. And I think I want to quickly touch on your friendship with Lauren, because I think it's very unique. And you guys didn't know each other before this journey. And I'm getting goosies talking about it because I feel like you've sort of just found each other and it was just kindred spirits and you guys have just been inseparable, but you've just turned into such close friends and that person for one another. And I just think, yeah, I'd love for you to sort of unpack a bit of how that happened because I think this is important for other parents to recognize that even though the village changes and shifts, you can find these people in our community.
Yeah, for sure. So I met Lauren when Hallie was only, I think, 10 weeks of age. We went to an ECDP, which is an early childhood developmental program play group. She had just moved up from Canberra. I won't say her side of the story, but she was there too because her son had a hearing loss. And I love talking to people and she's very quiet. And so I just got talking to her and talking to her more. And then yeah, before I know it, we were calling each other daily and our friendship just blossomed from there. And then she really helped me when Hallie was diagnosed for a second time at 6 months of age. And she was like, nope, I'm going to even increase our signing because I want Hallie to feel included in our home. And then that's how she was already doing Auslan for Mateo as well, but it definitely increased, I think, when she found out about Hallie. And even now, like I'll call her and she's come to my house before, picked up my kids just to give me a bit of a break and she'll bath them and feed them and drop them back. Like she has been a rock. And I know that when my kids are with her, Hallie is getting full access to language. And I'm very grateful. And I'm grateful for all of my friends. I have beautiful friends, but Lauren gets it on a different level. And I can say as much as I want to her, and there's no judgment. I can say I'm not loving my life right now, and she will be right there with me. So
Yeah.
I'm just so grateful for that because I think everyone needs a friend like Lauren in their
Yeah.
life.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and you too, you both are so reciprocal in that. And I think, she's got 4 kids, you've got 3 kids, and you'll scoop each other's kids up and just like they're your own. And I think that's that village. And we need that village and we need parents to feel that they're not alone. Because I think a lot of the time we go through this stuff, and even me all the time. And I think I just need to call or talk to someone. And, we've got the RB club, I've got communities, we've got things happening, Facebook groups, forums, things like that where we can connect. And I just really encourage people to do that because I feel like it just saves us in this world.
100%. If I didn't have Lauren, I don't know how I would have gone through the last 3 years, to tell you the truth. But everyone needs someone who they can vent to and they understand it on that same level. It's just like anything in life, though. Unless you've walked those shoes, no one's ever going to truly get it. They can sympathize with you as much as they want, but they're never going to get it on that same level.
And accepting that I think is part of that as well. And we can almost parallel that as well with us not understanding our kids' journey. Like, and this is why deaf people for our deaf kids are just so critical because as much as we want to know our child's journey, there is always going to be that separation because we grew up hearing, we are hearing, we don't know those barriers for them. And so I think that that's a really good message. I did want to ask
Mhm.
now. So you've been through 3 years, nearly 4 years of just
Yeah.
craziness. I mean, I know how she's going, but tell everyone how little Hallie's going because she's a bit of a force to be reckoned with.
Oh, she is. She's a firecracker. Anyone who knows Hallie knows she's very bossy and she gets her way. Yeah, she has just picked up Auslan like incredible. I couldn't ask for. She tries so hard at everything she does. I'm very lucky to be her mum. Yeah, I could honestly talk about her for days, but I think she's going to go far in life. She has that drive and she's very determined. And I feel like she's also even teaching my friends, just things about life. And yeah, I think our journey has opened up a lot of people's eyes, which is really special. But yeah, she's doing amazing. She's signing in full sentences, having conversations back and forth. I think the biggest thing I struggle with out in the community when you're out, say at the shops, because she doesn't have hearing devices and I'm signing with her, the amount of people that feel that they can come up and be like, oh, is she deaf? Or, oh, are you teaching her baby sign? And that is my biggest pet hate. I'm
Mm.
just like, let me just do my shopping or let me just do, I honestly sometimes feel like turning around and saying, oh, are you hearing? Like, just let me be with my daughter. Like, that's probably my biggest thing that I struggle with the most is when people come up and they want to ask questions and you just want to get stuff done because it's every day. Someone will come up to you to know what's going on and it's like, not right now. No.
I don't know whether this was you. I can't remember now, but it may have been our conversation where when you were starting, it was that whole signing in public is so visible and it's just so obvious. And I think a lot of families really struggle signing in public.
Yeah, I definitely did in the beginning, 100%, because it just was felt unnatural to me. Now, no, I'll find Hallie needs language. She needs to know. And if people come up, because I'm biased, I'm her mum, but she's very cute. People will say, oh, she's beautiful, or you're very cute. So I will then sign what they've said. And then that will spark a whole nother conversation of, oh, she's deaf, is she? Or does she use sign language? And then it's, yeah, it continues from there. But yeah, now I'm just like, I'll just sign and I'll get angry at her in public too in Auslan if she's doing the wrong thing, which 9 out of 10 times she is. She likes to push my buttons. And I think now too, because back then I'd sit her in a trolley and sign to her, but she wasn't signing much back as a baby. But now she will sign back in a full sentence and tell me what she wants, or no, she's sad, or whatever it is that she wants to tell me. So I think that probably shocks people too, because they see her giving me language back. And a lot of people say, oh, she's so clever. And yes, she is clever. But in my mind, it's just like a 3.5-year-old talking back. It is the same thing. She's just using her language, and it's just the same as a hearing child.
Yeah, I love that. We just want, I think people often go, oh, they're doing really well for a deaf child. And it's like, hang on, hang
Yeah.
on. Every deaf child, we always talk about it, deaf child, hearing child, if it's just deafness we're talking about here, they are born with the same brains craving language. It's literally the difference between access. And she's been given such rich access because you have put so much into making sure, particularly those first few years, and we talk about this front load intensity intervention where we just have to throw everything at it. You did that beautifully. And something you did as well that I love is that you had one deaf mentor for her, but you also ensured she had a variety of deaf mentors. And why did you do that? Why is that important?
I think because one thing I've struggled with Auslan is the variations in signs. So we've had some deaf mentors who are like a deaf grandma to Hallie, and how they were taught and some of the signs is different to what, say, someone who is my age as a deaf mentor. So we've had a variety of ages so that we can see the variety of signs, but they've also played different roles in Hallie's life. So they all kind of just taught us different things about their life and growing up and things to do. One thing I was taught very early on was, yes, Hallie's going to need a lot of attention, but you need to not forget about your other child. And that has stayed at the forefront of my mind because Hallie has so many appointments still now. And I'm very big on making sure that Rocco and Lennox now are still getting the same attention as what Hallie is getting. Like, I'm not favoriting one child, even though it might feel some weeks I am giving Hallie everything. I will then try and make sure that Rocco has a fun activity to do, or whatever it may be. And that was someone that was a deaf person, and they seen it with their siblings as well. And that was amazing to learn that very early on. So I'm very aware of that. But I think it's just the different experiences, life experiences that they can give and their variations in signs. But also it is hard to find good deaf mentors. Like the ones that we have in our corner are incredible. They're all so busy. Everyone wants them because they're so incredible. So you need to have a few up your sleeve because people get sick, things happen in their lives too. So you need to make sure that you've constantly got this revolving door so that you've got access to the deaf community.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that mention of Rocco is so important because those sibling relationships, like, cannot stress how important it is. And look, we've had times with Billy where he's really not wanted to sign, and we had to really shift that. And we've talked about in the podcast before where we move it away from the Auslan and all that stuff being about the one child and it just being like, no, this is just what our family does. And I think it is such a big shift. And our hearing kids play such an important role in our deaf child's life, but we can't forget that they have their own needs. And I know our eldest boys are very similar. People honestly think on socials that all I do is hang out with Frank and Billy gets nothing. And it's so not. Like, Billy is the attention boy. Like, he needs me all day, every day. Frankie could sit in the corner and play and write and just entertain himself all day and he'd be like, I'm good. But Billy needs me, like, attached to him,
That's
touch.
Rocco. Yeah.
Yeah, like they've just got this, and look, it could be because they sense this change in the attention, but that's been from early on. He's just, and it's so funny because obviously our pages are about our deaf kids because that's what we're raising awareness around, but it's actually in the background, it's the other child who's taking all of us, and I wouldn't have it any other way, but it is such a balancing act.
It is. And I feel like it's probably never going to stop. And sometimes you're going to feel like you're failing because you're giving one child more attention than the others. But yeah, it just comes around into a circle, I feel.
Yeah, and I love you did something I know. I remember you took, well, I don't know whether you do this regularly, but you take Rocco on a like just a month.
Date day with him. Yeah, mummy and Sunday. And I did the same with Hallie where there was no appointments because I feel like my time with Hallie is about appointments and that's not fun for her. It's not fun for me having to make her do her physio or learn new words. It's exhausting. So I made sure that we went and got our nails painted with Hallie and with Rocco, he went and played putt-putt. Like they get to pick what they want to do. I'm on my own now, so juggling that is a little bit harder, but it's definitely on the forefront of my mind that I try and just give them activities to do at home where it's just me and Hallie or Rocco and me. Yeah, things like that.
That's amazing. And I guess before we wrap up, I just wanted to finally ask, and I always ask every parent this because I think there's so many nuggets of wisdom in every journey. Do you have any parting advice for families who might be starting out or on the same journey or different journey, but just anything you think you'd like to pass on?
Allow yourself in those first few weeks and days to feel what you're feeling. It's totally okay and totally normal. Just take it hour by hour because if you start to think too far ahead, you just get bogged down. It's very overwhelming. Follow deaf pages on Instagram that can really help. And then my biggest advice that I took from my best friend was take those breaks in the holidays from therapy. Otherwise, you're going to get burnt out. And when the parent or caregiver is burnt out, the child isn't going to thrive. So take those breaks because it is much needed.
Yeah, so true. And that carers fatigue, advocacy fatigue, appointment fatigue, it's so, so real.
Yeah. 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 And I get that because in every day, I'd say I spend 2 to 3 hours a day driving because I'm driving to a school that's not close by or Hallie's deaf kindy or appointments. So minimum 2 to 3 hours a day I'm in the car. And so come holidays, I don't want to do anything. I just want to stay home.
And see, this is the behind the scenes stuff that no one really recognizes when they don't have a child with difference or a child who has additional needs. It's like they don't see all this stuff happening and how it's really hard to hold down a job.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate you sharing that. And I really appreciate you sharing Hallie's journey and such a unique experience for you, but you are just taking it in your stride and you are honestly one of my idols and I think you're incredible and I just think you are helping so many people without even knowing you are and you're changing the narrative, which is what we want to do. So thank you so much, Nicole. It's been such a pleasure.
Thank you for having me. And I think all of that of you as well. You're doing amazing in this deaf space. So keep doing you.
Thanks, Gal. Hi, Nicole. Happy